Huge day on the Endless Hustle today as we welcome on two-time NBA champion, North Carolina basketball legend, Emmy award-winning host of Inside the NBA, and the engine behind the new Jet Academy, a series of online basketball camps for children of all ages, the Jet himself, Kenny Smith. Kenny, welcome.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Yeah, no problem, man. It's our honor here. Can you give us a little details on the Jet Academy? Because from my understanding, it's the first of its kind.
Yeah, first of its kind, live streaming service, instructional. It's the first device where you can work side by side with your favorite players, and works on any device. You know, all you need is Wi-Fi or cell service. You could be in a park, you could be in a gym, you could be in your living room, which some kids are doing. And you can actually just do drills side by side with your favorite players. We've had, our initial run, we had Trae Young, Kemba Walker, Victor Oladipo, Breanna Stewart, Brittany Griner. Now we're coming back. Next run is with Draymond Green, C.J. McCollum, Kobe White, Kendrick Nunn, Nasir Little, Cole Anthony. So we got a great group of guys. And what do? You just sign in, and then for 1 hour, you just work side by side of drills. Then you can upload your videos, tell us what you think you need to do right, wrong. We answer them in 48 hours while you're doing it, kind of like a, Facebook or Instagram Live, kind of like that, in the sense that you could ask questions as things are going. And so it's, like I said, it's the first of its kind. I created the streaming service with my son, KJ, who's at the University of North Carolina, and it's $29.99 a month. That's what we're doing now. So less than $1 a day. You can work out with pros, man, and get some real instruction. And we have a great holiday special where if you sign up, you get a free T-shirt, a Jet Academy basketball, and JBL headphones. So all you have to do is show up, man. It's like you have no excuse to get better.
Genius.
No excuse.
Genius. Such a great Christmas gift too.
Yeah, the pandemic don't slow you down. You shouldn't be a worse player coming out of the pandemic.
Kenny, what a different world we live in. Can you imagine if you, as a young stud New York point guard, had these capabilities and could literally hit up Walt Frazier or some of the legends that you grew up watching and literally be like on Instagram, Walt, how do you do that crossover?
I don't know. I would have told Michael Jordan. Michael Jordan would have been looking down at me. Because I mean, the one thing that, we didn't have growing up is the instant information. It's like it was trial and error. Like for me, it's like, oh, is this really the way I'm supposed to cross over a guy? Or this really the way I'm supposed to be looking for? And what, when you have like a Draymond Green or C.J. McCollum showing you, and you can ask questions, what they can tell you is when to do it and why to do it. Like, I just kind of did it. It's like, oh, does it work? And I think that's the biggest difference that, I felt that was important when we created the platform. Is it's like, CJ, don't just do the drill. Tell them when you do it and why you do it. What do you look for when you're about to do it? And, there's some great individual trainers that do it, but here's a guy who's scoring 30 points a night at the highest level telling you how to do it. So for me, I just thought it was just a great platform, a great tool. My son was 12, is doing it, and excited about it.
Yeah, so basically like a master class in basketball, and you get some free swag out of it too. So that's incredible.
Yeah, a little bit different. Masters, theirs is taped. Ours is, we're live and direct. Yeah. We do have a tape version where you could go back and watch it, but this is live and direct. This guy's, which was funny because Kemba was doing it and he was in the bubble. So I would talk to him about being in the bubble. That's when they first got there too, and it was like, the food here is terrible.
Yeah,
it's like, and then all of a sudden the NBA heard all that and they changed all the food. Yeah. But so I think I feel a little responsible for the better food in the bubble because of my interview with Kemba Walker telling how he hated the food.
Yeah. Kenny, I want to get into your career here because before you were one of the most respected analysts in the game, you were a hell of a good player. All-American at UNC, setting records in the NBA Finals. You've become obviously one of the great analytical minds in basketball. But do you ever feel like you've become a victim of your own post-basketball success and that your resume as a player isn't the main focus, especially to the younger generation?
No, I don't. That doesn't bother me at all. I mean, I've done this longer than I played basketball, Yeah. I've been an announcer longer than I've been a basketball player. I've been an announcer for 20 years. I played basketball 11. So, a different understand, and people, recognize me more from that. There's a generation that understands, what my gift to the game is as a, breaking it down than breaking down players. So I'm not upset at that. I'm just actually, that's flattering when people come up. You're the announcer, right? You're the guy from TNT. No, or I get this. You're the guy from NBA 2K. Now, you're the guy. You're the announcer from the Jet Academy. I'm like, no, I'm actually the Jet. Yeah, you're like, I'm him. Like,
don't get it twisted.
When, Kenny, was the moment, because you guys have become the gold standard of sports TV at this point, but when was the moment that you kind of looked around on set and knew there was magic, there was something there, that this was going to become that gold standard?
Well, this was honestly before Charles even got there. When I got there with Ernie, it was just Ernie and myself. And, our producer, we have a really great producer. His name's Tim Kiley. I was talking to him about different things. And there were certain things that were going on that television had traditionally had done that I didn't understand why they were doing them. And I kept questioning things. And he was like, you know what? Don't do it that way. I was like, it was one of the things where I was looking, they had a thing in television. When you're talking, when Ernie would ask you a question, they say, okay, now answer to camera 3. I think you guys know that. Like, you answer to 3. And I said, why would I answer to camera 3 and it's not a human being? I was like, why wouldn't I just look at Ernie or talk to Ernie? And he said, you know what, that makes sense. I said, because if I make a joke and I don't know if he's laughing or not, I don't know if it's really a joke that I should carry on and keep moving on with, or if I say something informative and he's not like, that's a good point. I'm not getting a human reaction, so I'm just guessing. And he's like, oh, fine. He said, we got 6 cameras in here, we'll find you. So things like that, I think, changes the dynamic of our show, where you're never talking to a camera, you're talking to a person. You don't get 30 seconds to talk. Like you get a chance to talk, but if you're not saying it right, someone will cut you off right in the middle of it. The same way a normal conversation goes. Like, hey, it's raining outside. You look at me like, no, it's not raining in Brooklyn. What are you talking about? Like, it's not raining here. Like, you're not gonna just let me say that and just keep going. Like, no, LeBron James is the best player in the world. Okay, you could say that, but if you say something else, you can't continue. You just can't continue the conversation. That makes no sense.
You mentioned Ernie Johnson, and Ernie is the least high-profile guy on the Inside Cast, which isn't saying much given who you guys are, but he's earned the reputation as kind of the patriarch of the group. His character is well documented. He and his wife adopting a son, who was abandoned in a park with muscular dystrophy. Barkley said he's never met a nicer guy, and it's been an honor working with him. What can you say about Ernie that the general public may not know?
Well, I'm glad. I would say that, Charles never met a nicer guy. He's not in a good. Charles doesn't hang with a lot of nice people, so that's not a good. It's not a compliment. Like, his group is. No, I'm just playing. But I think Ernie, he's a great listener. His job is to actually talk, but he's a great listener, and he understands what's going on, around. And I think that that's full fold for him as a person as well. He's just a great listener. You could talk to him about different subjects, different things, personal items. Our staff talk to him, about life and things of that nature, and owe debts of gratitude towards him. For a guy who gets paid to talk, his best attribute, he's a great listener.
There was a great moment. You'd mentioned Chuck. I'm originally from Philadelphia. People don't realize how beloved Charles Barkley is in Philadelphia. It's him and Iverson and Brian Dawkins at the top of that mountain, pretty much, and maybe Mike Schmidt. There was a great story that came out where Chuck had befriended a man, and when the man had passed away, the daughter wrote this whole op-ed about how Chuck had befriended her father, and it went viral. And it really gave you an inside look into Chuck's character and how great a dude he is. Offset, what can you tell us kind of about Chuck that people wouldn't know, where you just want to hug him if you see him?
Charles is very benevolent. I would say that. He is a walking contradiction in terms of being like this tough guy and all of that, but he's very benevolent person. We understand, like sometimes on television, he'll say things, and you go, well, last week he just said something different. He is a walking contradiction. However, in terms of his benevolency, I think that he has a string that pulls the people to his heart that he thinks he could help everyone. And his help is different from everyone else's too. Because a lot of times, you see someone on the street and you say, hey, brother, can you spare a dime kind of thing. He's the guy who's going to take the guy to and buy him a house. You're like, wait a minute, you bought the guy a house? He's like, yeah, I bought him a house. But in the same token, I'm like, but did you get him furniture? And he's like, no, well, he could work and get his own furniture. I'm like, so it's like a walking contradiction with that sometimes, But he's so benevolent, man. Like, he just, like, to the extreme. And there he is. He's an extremist. He's really to the extreme with his benevolency. The black colleges, HBCUs, he's donated like $1 million to like 5 or 6 of them, just sitting in the green room talking. Like, it was just a casual conversation. And someone said something, and he was like, yeah, you know what? I'm going to give that, like, back HBCUs $1 million. 2 weeks later, I'm reading the paper, hey, you give it. But it was such a casual conversation, you don't think that it's going to happen sometime. And that's what I would say the most interesting. And he's OCD.
Oh, wow.
This is before COVID. He was carrying Clorox wipes in his bag. This is way before Clorox. This is 3 years. He wipes everything down. Everything is meticulously put. His closet looks like a department store at, the best men's store in the world. Every shirt is color-coded. It's neat. It's perfectly in place. He knows exactly where everything is. The most annoying quality that he has, he's for those old school people, he's Felix Unger, and I'm Oscar Madison. So it's not a fun thing to be around him.
When you and Ernie are sitting in the middle there and watching him and Shaq go at it on set, do you ever think that it could come to blows? Do you ever think, like, man, these two might jump the table and just start pounding each other?
Shaq can jump the table. Charles have to run around it. But yes, and we are the 3 brothers that will fight, and then the mom has to bring them back to the table, or the dad, and be like, listen, guys, hey, you can't do that. You're brothers. And then everyone hugs it out. And then we play baseball. But we can only do it to each other. Meaning, if you guys came in and said something crazy about any of us, we're all going to attack you. It's like, no, he might be a butthole, but he's our butthole. And like, no one else can say it. No one can talk smack about Charles or Shaq but me. No one can talk smack about me and Chuck but Shaq. Like, we don't allow anyone else to do that, which is funny because people see us on the show and they join in to what they think. We're like, no, you don't know us like that. You can't do that. Yeah. Can't say that about him. He's our brother. He's not yours.
We had Richard Jefferson on the pod, and he told us that when Gilbert Arenas joined The Jump, he had to sit with producers for 10 minutes before they went live. So for a list of words that he couldn't say on air, he ended up calling RJ a douchebag on air anyway. But when KG joins Inside the NBA, I know he has a cuss button, but are producers sweating bullets when they see him coming? Or are there any like KG stories you can share with us? He's my all-time favorite player, so I have like a personal.
Yeah, well, when KG was there, I created the cuss button. Yeah. Because I was like, yo, I literally said it on the air. I was like, we're going to need a cuss button for you. And then the next week they brought the cuss button out. I was like, as soon as you could just press it when you're ready to just go into it. I think KG's passion, man, I loved when he worked with us because the stories that he would give in the green room and the intensity of it was like, all I needed was a popcorn, and I'm like, oh, man, this dude saying, man. It was just, he's so passionate about everything. I wish, and I used to tell him, I'm like, and I think, and I'm going to be honest, I thought we did him a disservice in the fact when he was working with us because we gave him a show. We should have made him part of a show. And then he could have had his own show. Because he tells such great stories, I think they said, oh, he could have his own show. But he didn't have television instincts yet. Yeah. He had instincts of telling great stories. So, and I always said that. I'm like, no, just make him part of our show, a segment first. Like, make him a segment, the KG segment, blah, 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 blah. And I always used to say that because his stories were just so great. And he's kind of like on the Chappelle show. What was it when Charlie Murphy? Charlie Murphy had all these stories about, hanging with his cousin or his brother Eddie Murphy, and he was hanging with Prince, and he was hanging with all of the heavyweights of Rick James and all of that. That's what KG was like. But Charlie Murphy couldn't carry a show, but he would give you he's like, those are the most memorable moments of some shows of the Chappelle show. So that's how I thought KG could have been for us.
Kenny, what's in the water in New York that produces some of the best and toughest point guards of all time?
I don't know if it's still there, but I think overall the appreciation, because now the game has changed. The appreciation of running a team, getting in others involved, and being an individual are no longer point guard qualities in the NBA. You don't have to have that. You have to have that in New York City in general. I think that instinct of not controlling a game and not having the ability to score all the time. That's what made a New York point guard great. I think a lot of coaches today, because of, especially I think Steph Curry probably was the leading in this, and Steve Nash, right after Nash, it was, the scoring point guard. When I played in New York City, I could get 10 oohs and ahs without scoring a basket. Like the whole park would be going in a frenzy, and I hadn't even scored yet. Just making nice passes, getting the right play, going between my legs, making it, that's not appreciated now, like running a team. They want you to score. They want you to shoot threes. And then LeBron James also changed that. Now your power forward can handle the basketball, make decisions from the perimeter. So they think everyone can do that, not realizing Steph Curry and LeBron James are generational players. There's only two of them. More guys are like Rondo, who want to be Steph Curry. Right. More guys are like power back to your basket players that want to be LeBron. And so it's just not appreciated as much as for me. But I think that's the reason why New York point guards have always been that.
LeBron just won his fourth title, 3 different franchises, 4 finals MVPs. You've been, I guess, critical of LeBron in the past when comparing him to the all-time greats. You had some time to think this.
Critical.
No, not critical, just in comparison. You said top 10, I believe, right?
I mean, he's the best player of this generation, without question, not close.
Yeah, but you pinned him, I believe it was 7.
Well, if Kevin Durant didn't get hurt, it would have been closer. He was making his way. And, we'll see when he comes back and how healthy he is. I just respect what the other guys have done in a different era. 6 championships with Michael Jordan, 5, MVPs. You talk about Magic, multiple, 5, finals appearances, winning championships, 5 MVPs, 3 multiple. Like, I respect that. I understand what that is. I understand how that would translate in this era. Like, I understand how that would do that. So for me, being in the top 10 of all time is not a disrespect. Did he move up this year? Yeah, I would say he moved up. But at the time I said it, it was the beginning of the thing. But is he still in my top 3, 4 guys? No, I'm sorry. He's not there yet. I take 13 championships and Bill Russell over that right now. I just take it over it. I take Michael, And, I think where he passed to me is like where he was to me was Larry Bird, LeBron James, Magic. Like, that's where he was to me at the beginning of the season. He didn't surpass that at the beginning of the season for me. He just didn't.
Kenny, you played with one of the greatest players of all time in Hakeem Olajuwon. And when you look at today, we see the Luka Doncic and the international phenomenon of players coming in from everywhere. Back then, it was Hakeem and just a handful of guys. Did Hakeem have an understanding back then of, because of his high-profile success, that he would inspire kids in Africa and remote parts of the world and make them want to be basketball players? Did he know what was happening?
No, I don't think he thought it was happening because of him. Also, you're talking about when Charles says the most nicest man he had, Hakeem Olajuwon is the most honorable man I ever met. I don't think that he knew it was him. He just saw it happening, and he was like, oh, he's from Nigeria as well, and he's from this part, he's from Algeria, he's from, Sudan, but he never took credit for it. He probably that's just a demeanor. but he knew it was happening, but I don't think he understood it was him. like everyone coming in, well, my favorite player, Hakeem. My favorite player, Hakeem. My favorite player, Hakeem. I don't think he got it like that it was him that was making it happen in that moment. Maybe now as he reflects, he probably understands. But while we were playing, he never would be like, never would say, nah. I used to say, man, that point guard comes from New York because of me. You know what I mean? Like I was cocky. So, you know what I mean? Like he's trying to play like me, you know, but he never would say anything like that. No, not at all.
What was the mindset of those teams? I grew up during that era, seeing the Bulls. The 80s Lakers are my all-time favorite. I had Showtime posters everywhere. But those two championship runs you guys experienced, especially the whole never give up attitude, when you're part of that culture, what's it like as a player experiencing that firsthand?
It's a way of life, you know. It's not a moment. It's like a way of life that the group of guys that were put together had already lived. You know, Mario Elie playing overseas, going to American International University, like that's a never give up attitude. You know, Chucky Brown, who at one time had played on the most NBA teams in the history of basketball. You know, myself being first team All-American in high school, but my junior year didn't have one scholarship offer. You know, Hakeem, you know, comes to this country. He redshirted his first year at University of Houston. So it goes down the line. It was a way of life for us. And then all of a sudden you look around and you're like, man, this guy thinks like me. Like he don't give up. He's not a lamb. He's a lion. He's a tiger. Like he's not gonna give up. And then collectively, I don't know if they knew that, whoever the general manager who put us together, or it just happened. And you look around, you had like-minded individuals that being down 3-1 was comfortable. Like I feel better here. Like down 3-1 in the series, I feel good. Like down 2-1, I'm all right here. This is where I'm used to being a little bit. And then I know how to come out of that and rise out of that. So for me, it was just like-minded individuals that had already been living that lifestyle.
Does the part of you wish that you were able to hand Michael his only finals loss? I mean, you guys beat that dominant Orlando team. I think you swept them, but I know you said that you would have beaten Michael Jordan's Bulls had they advanced past it. But what's your kind of mindset on that?
No, I don't think you know what? Thinking then I would have. Back then I'm like, yeah, we'd love to have played them and be the team that beat them. But now, being a fan of Michael Jordan and being an announcer, I wouldn't want that tarnish on his record. I love the fact that he goes, been in the finals 6 times, he's never lost. You know, like I like that mystique about him because I want people to really know how great he was. So I wouldn't want him to be like, oh, he was 6-2 in the finals. Like, because I do think we would have got him. I think we would have got him. So, you know, I've seen him be the best player in the world and not be on the best team before. So I didn't think his team were the best if he would have stayed those 2 years. There was no Horace Grant and there was no Dennis Rodman in those 2 years. Dennis was in San Antonio, Horace was in Orlando. And I think that's really the reason why they lost to Orlando the first time and didn't get a chance to play us when he was wearing number 45. It's because they were too small. And then, you know, then the next year they go out, you know, they go get Dennis Rodman, and then it's back to business. But no, I'm glad we didn't beat him. I'm actually glad. I want him to keep the cape on. I want him to be Superman. I want the people to understand how great he really was, that in this era, you know, he still would have been the greatest player ever. He would have averaged 50 points a game, and he would have won every championship that you could imagine in this era.
How selfless of you.
Kenny, we had Jay Williams on the pod, and I asked him to, by position, give us his all-time Duke team. So having you on the pod, I'm going to ask you by position, all-time Tar Heel team, by position.
Okay, wait. Before you say who was the best point guard at Duke for Jay? Who did you remember?
Him and I battled on this. He said Kyrie. I said Bobby Hurley.
The best point guard. Well, if you're talking about playing at Duke, or you're talking about
all-time Duke team, I asked him. So by position, all-time Duke.
Kyrie's not the best point guard. He's not. If
He had a disclaimer. He goes, even though I know he played only 10 games, by talent and had he had a full year, full career, he's the best
Well,
ever.
I mean,
argued
we
that.
can't. That's what I'm saying. He's not. That school in Durham, the best point guard, honestly, there was Johnny Dawkins. Johnny Dawkins
I
was
thought
a better
that
player.
too. I thought about
Better
that
player
one
than
too.
Bobby Hurley to me. Even when Bobby Hurley was doing his thing and going to Final Fours, I thought Christian Laettner at Grant Hill and those guys had just as much to do with it or more. Where if Johnny Dawkins had those guys, Johnny Dawkins would have been playing in the Final Fours too. So I'll go with Johnny Dawkins as the best point guard I do. But North Carolina, Phil Ford, point guard, best point guard to ever touch the basketball at North Carolina. Michael Jordan, best two guard. Walter Davis is the best small forward that's ever touched it. Sam Perkins would be the best center. I would either go Rasheed Wallace or Mitch Kupchak at 4.
No Worthy? No Worthy?
Yeah, James Worthy's the best power forward. You're right. James Jefferson's the best power forward at North Carolina. And then Sam Perkins is the best 5.
Matt, I think I just earned a job on Inside the NBA.
Yeah.
I just gave Kenny the UNC lesson.
You know what? The list is so long, I almost forgot about James. That's like our list is so long because there's still no Vince Carter on there, no Antoine Jameson, no Brad Daugherty, who's the #1 pick in the draft. But in terms of careers at North Carolina, it would be Sam, which all three of them played together, which is even crazy. Michael and James, they played together at one time. And Phil Ford, without question, is maybe the best basketball player that the ACC had ever seen.
What was the Dean Smith experience like? I always think to myself, if I'd grown up in that era and gotten a chance to be recruited by Coach K, Dean, you had Lute Olson in Arizona, I mean, these great coaches. When he walks in, what's that pitch look like that makes you say, I want to play for Coach Smith?
It was an out-of-body experience playing for him. It was like playing for Gandhi. It wasn't playing for a basketball coach. It was a life lesson every day. It was a cerebral thought process. It was not about basketball. Basketball is when I think of Coach Smith and the 10 things that I think about, 2 of them are basketball. 2 of them. Like, they're basketball related, but it's not like a game and he goes, oh, and he comes up with, draws this magnificent play. Like, it's all about life lessons that he used to say that related to the sport or just related to life. And like, those stick out way more. I talked to him more after I stopped playing than I did when I was even playing there. Like, I just call him like, Coach, this is going on in my life. What do you think? Blah, 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 blah. It's like, it was talking to Gandhi. It really was. It was like talking to Gandhi. You know, he's the first coach to bring in, you know, he brought in Charlie Scott, first African-American player at North Carolina. He could have sold me on recruitment by just saying that. He was like, I'm the first guy to bring in an African-American player. No, he never mentioned it. Like, never. Like, at all in his whole life, he's never said to me that. He never said that. I had to read that when I got there. When I was like, really? It's like, he did that? I was like, I didn't even know. Like, that's the type of person he was. You know, in terms of social justice, he was way ahead of his time. He actually apologized. This is 10 years, 20, 10, 12 years ago, 15 years ago, rather. He apologized for Phil Ford not getting the job. I thought he just called me at first. He called almost every African-American player and said, you have done too much for the university for us not to have an African-American coach when I leave. I'm sorry. I'm like, what? like, who does that? Like, he's just social justice way ahead. Basketball, way ahead. Life, way ahead. Just unbelievable experience, man. You would loved it. We had things where we have an emphasis of the day at North Carolina. So you have defensive emphasis, don't let your guy go baseline. Offensive emphasis, hit the open man. Thought of the day. Never judge a man unless you walked in his moccasins for at least 2 moons. Like, I still remember that. Like, stuff like that. Those would be like different thoughts. So he'd have different thoughts from like Gandhi or from anyone else or from Mother Teresa or just random thoughts that he read somewhere, and we'd have to remember him. And if you didn't remember the thoughts of the day or the emphasis of the day, you had to run. The whole team had to run. So everyone always remembered them. You know what I mean? Yeah. I just know, always remembered what they were, So different man.
That touches my heart, man. That's awesome. LiAngelo Ball just signed with the Pistons here, making LaVar Ball's sperm 3 for 3 in the NBA. But we had him on the podcast.
No credit to his wife at all. Just now,
Huh?
just letting you know, Matt. So that's why it's actually worse because it's not anything to do with the mom and her eggs. It was all about his.
No, Kenny, you haven't listened to our podcast because I literally was pumping up Tina the entire podcast.
Right, so
go and listen to it.
Just knowing, let me give you a tidbit. I don't know them personally, but I know of them and I've seen them because I live in Los Angeles, and my son is KJ, who's in University of North Carolina, is the same age as most of those guys, and he's a senior now. And we used to play AAU against their teams, and we used to, and my high school, his high school, Mater Dei would play against Chino Hills in the playoffs. Mater Dei was a much better team at the time, and so they would always win. So I seen him, and LaVar was not this LaVar at all. And the mom got all the credit when they were younger, like how she takes care. Like when they were like in 8th, 9th, and 10th grade, everyone used to like that talk to me would be like, yeah, and the mom, Tina, she's like got this. And then all of a sudden, I think it was like 11th grade, it became about LaVar. And I was like, man, what happened to the mom? And I forgot her name at the time. And I was like, what happened to the mom? Because everybody used to tell me how great a mom she was to these 3 kids who were playing basketball. And then about 11th grade, it just became about how LaVar did it, and so shout out to Tina then.
LaVar gave the stiff arm to her. Yeah, we asked him what the most romantic thing he's ever done for her is, and he said, I gave her these kids.
Oh my God. Okay. All right. Yeah.
Pretty true to form there. I was basically asking you your view on LaVar and what do you think the ceiling is for the 3 boys, especially Melo and LiAngelo?
I think all of them have, high ceilings, even LiAngelo, LiAngelo's more of a traditional kind of player. Not when I say traditional, he doesn't have the explosion, or the size that dominates the position, so to speak. Like he's not a 6'8" point guard, 6'7" point guard. So he's not a 6'11" shooting guard like Kevin Durant, so he doesn't have that phenomenal physical type. The other 2, they possess. They have size for the position. They don't have the great athleticism all the time, but they're good athletes. But they have the size that kind of could dominate the position if they ever became great at it. And being great is not a skill set; it's a mindset. So they just have to figure out what the mindset is to be a great player in the NBA. They have the skill. I've watched them mature from 8th grade, watching them play to now. From afar, and they have the skill set. Do they have the mindset to be great? Is going to be the question. I think they all Melo right now probably has the biggest ceiling, just because he shoots the ball better than Alonzo. He shoots the ball better, even though he's not a great shooter, but he does shoot the ball better. You can't just leave him and go double team. I don't believe, even at this stage in his career.
Kenny, the thing that people will never realize is, especially the younger generation, you could jump out of the fucking building. I mean, you were an absolute leaper. And you're about 6'3", I'm 6'2", although I cannot jump out of the building. We had Baron Davis on, who was another dude who dunked on so many players throughout his career. What's it like as a little guy when you actually dunk on someone, especially a big guy? What's that feeling like when you get to experience that?
Yeah, I think when you experience that, it's like I never looked at myself as little though. I always it's like I looked at guys who can jump and guys who couldn't. It wasn't like he's small. He is like, well, when I get up there, who's going to be there with me? So some guys are 6'8", but they're not going to be up there with you. So then they're little to me. You know what I mean? So I never thought of them as little or big. I thought of who could jump and who couldn't. I could jump over a building when I was 18, 19, 20, 21, whatever, dunk contest. But when I learned about 19, 18, that I could open the door and walk through the building, that's when I became a better player. Like, you don't have to jump over the building. You can, the door's open. Like, you just open the door and walk through. So that's where a lot of great athletes lose it or don't get it until too late. and then they don't make the NBA, or they get to the NBA and don't have great careers, because it takes some time to realize that. I learned a little earlier, and that helped my career become a better player. 6'3", 170 pounds, there's a million of us. But to be college player of the year, be 6th pick in the draft, like, you know, you got to know how to walk through the building. But jumping over guys and dunking on them, you know, like I said, it's fun because you walk into a practice, or you walk even on a bus, and you look at guys as little. That's that. And they say, what's the alpha? That's what that brings. It's like you're big men, you don't like, you're not in fear of their size. You're like, he's a little guy. He's little. He's little. Yeah, he's not big. Like, because I come to the lane, I'm not thinking about him. Like, I'm in there. He's not, my thought process is not about this guy blocking my shot, ever. Like, ever. So when I watch games today, that's when I watch, even today, I watch and I go, you compare errors. I'm like, well, this is the only error where, how do I put it? This might be a quotable. Here it is. I almost went there. Like, this is going to be one of those LeBron. This might be LeBron. The LeBron is not in the top 10 moment. This is one of those. I can feel it coming. Like, guys in my era would be not scared of anyone in this era, because there's no shot blocker. Like, there's no one who you would be nervous going through the lanes. So, and they're playing small ball. The difference is, as a small guy, I had to stay on the perimeter. Who am I scared of today?
AD?
Like, who?
AD?
No.
But the thing about this, AD, JaVale McGee, and Dwight Howard, probably three best. They were on the same team this year. They are three best shot blockers in basketball. And two of them I'm not really that scared of if I was playing at 21. You know, at this stage in their career, I wouldn't be as scared of Dwight for sure. AD, I would have to look at. And JaVale, I think I could fool every now and then. I'd be able to fool him. So, but no one else. And you're telling me it's hard to play in this era? No, it's easy to score. It's hard to play in this era, but it's easy to score. Easy.
There's a video out there that's like 3 minutes long of Michael Jordan driving in throughout the 80s and 90s and absolutely getting annihilated. I mean, annihilated by the likes of Bill Laimbeer, those, you know, Knicks I'm not even talking to physicality. I'm not even talking to physicality. I'm talking about my shot gets released and they block it. Tucker from the Rockets is going to block my shot. He's playing the 5. When I come in, they're playing the 4. When I come in there, he's going to block my shot. All I have to do is dance around and get to the lane, and I'm going to score. The hardest part is winning still. It's still hard to win in this league. It's still hard to compete, but it's not hard to score. Scoring is easy. Like, it's the easiest thing to do in the NBA right now is to be able to score. There are guys who would not be able to average double figures, that average double figures in this league now, that couldn't average double figures because it's easy to score. When the younger players would see that what you just said, you're going to get so much hate. But I 100% agree with you. Does it bother you that the younger players kind of think you have like old head syndrome when you say this type of stuff?
I didn't say it was hard to win. I didn't say it was hard to compete. I said it's easy to score. There's a difference. I averaged 18 points my best year, I think 18. I had 1 year 17, 1 year 18, whatever.
17.
I would average like 24. I had 23 in this era, 23 points. Like, I'm not a 23-point scorer in my era. There's no question. They like, yeah, they would expect me to get 23 points in this era. And I'm like, yeah, I can do it because there's no shot blocker. So I don't have to stay on the perimeter to get most of my shots. I can get into the lane and lay Tucker. I can get in. Who else? Let's go. Who
Enes Kanter, you're disrespecting
Who was the Miami? Who was playing center? Bam Adebayo is a great player, but he's not a shot blocker. Yeah. He can handle the ball. He can facilitate. He's a point center, our version of what Rodney McCray was, a guy who can handle the ball. Robert Reed, those guys, they handle the ball at 6'8". They can play multiple positions. That's Bam. He's a great player. He's not a shot blocker. I'm not scared of him going in the lane. Like he's not gonna block. He's not gonna block my dunk 9 out of 10 times. He got a great block, I think, and they showing it like it's one of the greatest blocks in history. I'm like, that was every night in our league. Like somebody's choking your dunk. Like that was every night.
There's
like,
also
not
more
the greatest shot block in the history of basketball. Bam's a great player, but no, that wasn't that.
In August, you famously walked off the set of Inside the NBA, obviously to show solidarity with the players' boycott following the shooting of Jacob Blake. Bill Russell praised you for it, as did many others. But Chuck criticized you for going rogue and not informing them of your plans. How do you view Barkley's criticism, and would you have done anything differently if he were to turn back the clock?
No, I wouldn't do anything different because it was nothing I really thought about doing. It wasn't like a plan, like I'm going to go do this. And anytime there's social injustice, I don't think that isn't your job to be disruptive? Like, It's not to plan it out, it's to be disruptive. And so, no, I wouldn't do anything different. I wouldn't inform Chuck, say, hey, this is what I'm going to do, pull him to, I did wait afterwards though. Say, hey, I just did that in the spur of the moment. Just felt something I felt from my heart to do. So I did wait and tell all of them that. So I could have just left the show and not did that, but I did do that. But I heard Chuck. Chuck's a contradiction, so I don't pay it. That's my brother. He could say anything. For me, it's important for us, especially as black men, not to be divisible. So I didn't take anything to it. That's what they talk about. So as two non-African American men, that's what they talk about when, they're trying to divide us. People will go, well, and then you fall into it. And you go, yeah, Chuck shouldn't have said that about me. That's not black excellence. So when you hear that term black excellence, it's like, no, you're going to sometimes not only look past, but you're going to educate your brother at the same time instead of letting him know that, nah, what you said, bro, was out of order. Like, no, nah, I get it. He wanted to know. Maybe he wanted to know because he wanted to walk off. I hope that's why he wanted to know, because he wanted to walk off with me. No, I'm not. It's not my job to tell Chuck every move I make. Like, I don't do that. I didn't tell him I was doing this interview with you either. So you know what I mean. So Kenny should have told me before he made that comment with BroBible. No, that's not my job, bro. Like, that's not. We close, but we ain't that close.
Here is the $1 million question. I've got to ask you, since you're a New York legend, about two other New York legends. Better rapper out of these three: Nas, Biggie, or Jay-Z?
Yeah, you argue about that all the time. But my favorite rapper is Biggie. He's my favorite. If I want to listen to music, I'm going to go to Pandora and go to Biggie. I'm going to go to Spotify, whatever it is, and I'm going to go to Biggie. He's my favorite. If you take his lyrics and you put them on any beat today, it still kind of would have the same feel. You change his lyrics and say, I'm going to put him on that Drake beat. I'm going to put him on that, Future beat or that 2 Chainz beat. It's going to have the same feel today to the young kids and to older kids and whoever. So Biggie's my favorite. So I always go Biggie and Nas are my two favorite. However, Jay is the best, because if this is true, then he's the best. Because they say he never writes down his lyrics like Biggie did.
He doesn't.
So if he is coming up with that inside of a booth with nothing written down, the entendres and the metaphors, and not writing it down, this guy can speak in rhyme the way we talk naturally then. So the way we don't think about our next word, he can think about his next word with rhyming with the same unadulterated thought process. That to me, he's the greatest of all time. To have those entendres together and it's not written down, he's the greatest.
All right, Kenny Smith, legend. Thank you so much for joining. Where can our listeners find the Jet Academy? Is there a website they go to sign up?
Oh, that was it. TheJetAcademy.com. Just go to TheJetAcademy.com. Sign up to work side by side with your favorite players. Draymond Green, C.J. McCollum, Kendrick Nunn are coming up, along with Kobe White and Cole Anthony. Precious Achua. We got the rookies coming in. We have Mr. Quickly coming in, Isaiah Stewart. So we have a lot of like eight, 9 guys. You just work side by side. The Jet Academy. Get you a free headphone, free basketball, free T-shirt, Jet Academy, and put it under the Christmas tree for your kids and get them better.
No brainer. Thank you, Jet.
Eddie, this was awesome. Thank you so much. That was
Thanks
a fantastic
It's
chat.
easy to score in this era. These guys can't guard
Oh, my
me.
God. It's already blowing up on Twitter.
LeBron would have so much trouble guarding me right now.
Kenny, thanks so much, man. Total
Thanks, Kenny.
treat.
Thanks.